Ends 1/23/21. While supplies last. Curbside available in most stores.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
That's right. We're on Facebook at AM 1400, KBFT, the voice of Fort Dodge. And, of course, you can always join this program by calling to the studio, 515-955-1400. Younger people, like my guest here, probably think I'm obsolete to actually ask you call a landline. My guest is Pastor Austin Hill, the First Presbyterian Church. Thank you for being here, Pastor.
It's my pleasure. I haven't had a landline in close to a decade.
I was going to say, have you ever had one, or is that something your parents had when you were a kid? Or
Well, yeah, I mean, we had one growing up, one that you actually had a cord, between the phone, the handset, and the phone.
But it was a long cord, right?
Yeah,
about
exactly.
10, 15 feet.
Yeah, you got to be free to roam. And then we got the wireless one. But yeah, I haven't had a landline, I think, since 2009.
Really? And you've soldiered on without a landline.
Yeah, and really the only thing I've missed is a bunch of telemarketer phone calls.
I get those on my cell phone, though.
Yeah, I get those there now, too. They've migrated, I guess.
Apparently, somebody really thinks I need an extended warranty on my car because I get 3-4 calls from different sources every day about getting an extended warranty on my car. My car is 5 years old, 50,000 miles. I'm okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. But you're in that perfect time now, where stuff starts to kind of wear out. So I think someone somewhere had you on a list, and now they think you're a prime candidate.
This all started when I paid my car off about a year and a half ago.
There's probably some signal somewhere that cues people
paid
off.
His car off. He's got a little extra money now, so let's
exactly.
No, it ain't happening, boys and girls. It ain't. If I really need another car, and I'm actually thinking about it, I'll get another new one.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to get an SUV or a pickup or something like that. Or pickups for like $60,000, so I don't think I have the time on earth to pay one of those. I'm not a farmer who goes in and writes it off on taxes and pays it in cash if he has a good
you gotta have something high enough and with 4-wheel drive for all the winter weather.
Well, high enough. I have a Toyota Camry, a sedan, 4-door sedan, and I parallel park almost anywhere, and I've got a pickup on one side, an SUV on the other, or a van, even worse. And I just have to back up on faith.
Yeah, exactly, and hope that they see you when they're going to leave.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Pastor Hill and I talk about Christianity in the 21st century, and does Christianity really have any influence in the 21st century? And how, as Christians, can we have a greater influence in the 21st century? Now, we should talk a little bit about truth, because there are those, and I get this, when we talk about the truth from a Christian point of view, they will kindly or not so kindly say, oh, you're going to talk to me about the truth? You believe in some guy in the clouds who's going to perform miracles for you? Are you out of your mind? By the way, where is Jesus? I'd like to meet him. Oh, you can't introduce him to me. Well, what the hell are you guys talking about? And by the way, if we cross this river, we don't need bridges. Why don't you guys just say the Lord provides, and the rivers will open, and the riverbank dries up, and we can just walk or drive across? And that's, from an atheist point of view, I understand that. How do we answer that sort of thing?
Well, I think the church throughout history has had times where, frankly, the church and science, or the church and things that we would consider to be true today, have been at odds with one another.
I guess.
I mean, the church has not always had the best track record. If you think of Copernicus, and with his ideas that the sun doesn't spin around the earth, but that the earth,
wrong. That
spins around the sun. So there have been times in history where the church has been kind of last to get the memo on on some of these things.
But they think they're the first to get the memo.
Yeah, and that's the challenge.
Especially the old Catholic Church. I don't mean the Catholic Church of the 50s. I mean the Catholic Church of 2,000 years ago. They believe they held the truth. And you should stop the presses for them, because they were about to tell you what God said. God coming out of the cave, or actually the Pope analogy coming out of the cave. It was from Greek mythology. I don't remember.
Yeah.
God X, I don't know. Something I remember from college. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you can look at just about every kind of social issue, even the ones that for many of us today seem like no-brainers. And there have been some groups within the church that have drug their heels. There have been other groups within the church that have been on the forefront, but if you look at slavery, if you look at women's suffrage, I mean, those have been issues where the church, there were people very outspoken in the church saying that we should not be kind of moving along with the whims of culture.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at science, I
So
mean,
we
obviously,
should keep slavery and keep women under our thumb. I don't think women would go back.
well, yeah, certainly, but they're
Second of all, I don't like wimpy women. Anyway.
yeah. Well, and I mean, things have just changed so much. I mean, through the Second World War and how, I mean, women really kept things going at home while many of our men were, off fighting in the war.
Mhm.
And I mean, for a whole generation. So, so there's been kind of a sordid history with the church and with different claims of truth. And what I mean by that is the church sometimes has been pitted against popular conceptions of the truth, and sometimes rightfully so. I mean, we are taught in Scripture to. The famous verse from Proverbs 3, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. Well, if I'm to lean not on my own understanding, as that proverb says, well, then I'm not to trust in, these kind of man-made ideals or these newfangled ideologies. And so that becomes a challenge. And there's a sense in Scripture, and I think it's an important sense or idea, that our own intellect, our own emotions, we can be led astray. We can lead ourselves astray. And I think we've all had those kinds of experiences where we are so good at talking ourselves into making bad decisions.
So we should defend on a being that we can't see.
Well, I think one of the ways that we discern truth then is in connection with others. And it's not just me by myself, but I hopefully am submitting myself to a community of believers, that we might be able to challenge one another, that we might be able to speak the truth to one another and to hear the truth, maybe when we are tempted to kind of go against what we know to be true ourselves. But I mean, just think, we all have different experiences in life where we knew the right thing to do, but we talked ourselves out of it anyway.
Right.
Because our emotions or, whatever else, really moved us in that certain direction. So I think there's this valid part of our Christian faith that reminds us that we need to look outside of ourselves for truth.
Well, you're 100% right, and I'm asking you some difficult questions. I'm almost asking you to defend the notion of God in itself, and I guess I'm going down a path I didn't really want to go with that. But I will say that the way I've determined the truth, including the existence of God, is I've done what others have said, Christians and other people, people of faith. Well, I don't believe in that stuff. Well, try this.
Yeah.
Try doing this and see what happens. And I did. And what happened then was exactly what they said was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I can depend on the truth of my own experience.
Yeah.
To fortify my faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that time and time again. Now, of course, like everybody, I've had losses, terrible losses.
Yeah.
But my faith, while shaken, I didn't put it on the shelf somewhere. I didn't forget it. I realized, as a matter of fact, a Christian told me, it's all right for you to be angry with God, even furious with God. So I found myself in La Crosse, Wisconsin one time shaving. And I started out with some morning prayer. Well, God, thank you for everything I have. And all of a sudden, I'm so blessed and grateful. And it just hit me that I wasn't any of those things. And I started saying things like, hey, God, I'm not too happy.
Yeah.
I don't feel very damn blessed by you, oh great creator. That turned into a prayer,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was talking to God directly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just at one time, I think God appreciated that as I was telling the truth rather than repeating something that I was supposed to say in prayer.
Yeah. And I think there are even examples of people reaching out to God in that way that you just described. And that's, I think, one of the beautiful reasons that we have scripture and that we are part of a faith community is we get to see the example of people who are currently present with us and the examples of those who've gone before us. I mean, there are these time-tested traditions, not that we can't try things in a new way or that we can't look for new ways of understanding how God is at work, but there's a reason we do some of these practices, and that's because people for generation after generation have discovered the presence of God in their lives through those practices. So we look to that example.
Yeah, and I told that story as a way of explaining that God will show you things, even when it's very difficult, even when you don't want to be shown those things. And as far as the death of a loved one, of course, as everyone, I've been through that. And those were hard times. And I've attended funerals recently where really decent people have died. And, what do you say? I'm sorry. Well, of course you're sorry. You don't want to bore the mourners to death.
Yeah.
So I used to spend several minutes in front of some poor unfortunate talking about how sorry I was that this person died. Anymore, I'm just honest. I clasp their hands in both of mine and say, I'm terribly sorry, and you have my sympathy. If there's anything I can do, let me know. And I move the hell on.
Yeah.
That's all they need to hear.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they know that you don't have answers. They know that you don't have answers.
That's right.
And I think when we try to come up with those answers, it cheapens the whole experience for everyone.
Well, it does. And I found myself searching for the words, something to be deeply poignant and relevant.
Yeah.
And I wound up making a complete jerk of myself, And so I was shown the way once again, wasn't I? God showed me something. Hey, just keep it simple, stupid.
Well, and I think there's so much power in simply being present with people and not having the answer. And there have been some times in my ministry over the years where people have been through some really tragic moments in very public kinds of loss with death of family members. And I've had the privilege, and I say it really is a privilege, of being a part of our community as we have together mourned that loss. And often being a public figure, I get to hear things, or sometimes people will look to me, to have the answer or to fix a horrible situation that really isn't going to be fixed. And sometimes I've been able to see that we as a community, I mean, we ultimately still are powerless in the face of death. And we all have to come to terms with that. And really, all we can do is sit with that and know that God is with us in that, and that certainly God will be with us on the other side of death too.
Yeah.
But there often isn't anything to say other than to be with people.
Well, that's right. As you know, I went through a near-death experience last fall.
Yeah.
And there was a segment on WHO, Channel 13 with Dave Price. I'm acquainted with Dave. He's been on this show several times. I've been on his television show a time or two. But anyway, Dave asked me about feelings of my own mortality. Was I going to die? And I considered it when I was in the hospital and when I got home, of course. And I had no fear, really. I feared the pain of dying. I hate the thought of suffocating, for example, or drowning or something like that. What's better, burning to death? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was not afraid. And as I've said before on this radio station, the nurses were worried about me. They were very attentive. And I said, I'm not going to die. I had that knowledge from God. I'm going to walk out of this hospital. I don't know what gave it to me. I guess it was the voice of God speaking through me, and it didn't occur to me at the time.
Yeah.
But I just said, I'm walking out of here. Don't worry, I'll be fine. And so far I have been. Now, COVID may kill me in the future sometime. I don't like that idea, but something's going to do it.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time for every one of us. Yeah. And
the type of COVID I had, I guess, was very long lasting. And there's different kinds.
Yeah.
There's that new strain of London.
More contagious one. They're saying,
the one that came over here from London, and now it's rip-roaring through the United States. Good God.
Yeah, I know.
It's really something. But anyway, I was afraid of dying when I was young a couple of times. I was in a near-death experience a couple of times when I was young, and I was afraid then.
And afraid in the sense that there's more life that you wanted to live.
Yes, that was it. That I was going to be rooked somehow. Boy, where did that word come from? Early 70s word. I was going to be cheated out of a good portion of my life. I hadn't been married, had any children. I was looking forward to doing that one of these days. And so I was fearful in that way. And of course, I didn't want to burn up either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or get shot or something. Or there's veterans that I've seen that are sacrificed a lot for their country.
Yeah.
Say that,
certainly.
So I didn't want to wind up like that.
Yeah.
But back to the truth. This is going to be a big conversation we're about to have. And believe it or not, political figures want to lead the discussion. Political figures, by their very nature, are not going to tell us the truth.
Certainly.
Anybody who believes that Joe Biden is going to tell them the truth, or Nancy Pelosi, and certainly not Donald Trump, or any Republican necessarily, are going to tell them the direct truth, well, you're just disturbed.
Well, and I think that's the challenge for anyone in a position of power. And I mean, I'll make it personal even for myself that while I hope I'm being truthful, I understand the temptation there is to say what people want to hear in order to hold on to a position of power or influence, or to say what I think is going to have a certain kind of influence or something like that. So I think that temptation to maybe use the truth to my own advantage is one that people in many positions of leadership experience, and certainly all the way up to the political leaders that we deal with.
Right.
I mean, they certainly are not immune to that. And so I think the question for us moving forward is, how do we discern the truth? And how do we have real, honest conversations with one another to pursue the truth?
How do we hold up our hands and say, you can trust us because we're Christians? We have the truth because it comes from God. That doesn't work with everybody.
Yeah.
And I guess we're going to have to live with that.
I think gone are those days, right?
Yeah, those days are gone. I mean, the younger Catholics, and I'll put that at under 50, they don't believe the Pope is infallible. As a matter of fact, I think the last Pope said, yeah, we're not infallible.
Yeah.
That was a big, older Catholics hear that and they go, oh,
I mean, I saw it just earlier today from the LA Times, an op-ed that I didn't read, but the headline alone was "The Ferocious Last Gasps of American Christianity."
Yeah, right. Yeah. Now, I don't know why they'd put it that way. It sounds like they were celebrating.
Probably, yeah.
They probably were, yeah. Bill Maher just pounds on it. And I thought to myself, if it weren't for Christianity, Bill, you'd be dead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are so many people who make their living and their influence on criticizing any kind of religion, and certainly Christianity.
Yeah. But Bill Maher is always ridiculing Christianity. And I thought, if the world was really what you thought it was, these good liberal people, these people who never really worked in their life, but they have a position in a university somewhere, and they're in opposition to these cold-hearted business people. Well, let me tell you, if those cold-hearted business people were really cold-hearted, they just go shoot you and go to lunch.
Or, I mean, there's just so much that what Bill Maher has said over the years that,
and I like him, by the way,
that would have gotten him canceled.
Yeah, it would have. But this is a new world. I'm reminded of what a Presbyterian minister said late in the 19th century about Catholicism. It was the religion of rum, Romanism, and rebellion, which I loved.
Yeah.
I thought, you're right.
That's a fourth R there for you. You're right.
Rum, Romanism, and rebellion. And you're right.
Spoken like a true preacher there.
Yeah, of his time, that's true. Even though Norman Vincent Van Peele was just terrible with Catholics, too. I don't know what his problem was. I guess they weren't going to his church. Anyway, Pastor Austin Hill is here, and we'll be back.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
It's 2:31. The news is next.
Are you looking for something unusual or hard to find? You might just find it on highbid.com. It's the online auction site for, well, just about everything. Highbid.com has estate sales, closeouts, liquidations,